We are all hoping that the old way of doing business in Washington is over and that the status quo has ended. We are entering what could be a new era in our country. So with much happening in the nation's capital, I wanted to expand beyond our weekly hour-long podcast to bring you short chats with key players in Washington, from the Senate to the House to President Trump's administration. These discussions will dive into the latest on legislation that's making its way through Congress and the efforts within the administration to drive the Maha agenda forward. I want to bring these back to you, the American people. Steve Bannon is an enigma to those who write about him. He's a patriot to those who love him, and he's a nightmare to those who fear him. Host of War Room and one of the most influential voices in the Maga movement, Bannon served as chief White House strategist for President Trump in 2017. He played a key role in shaping the administration's agenda. He joins me today to talk about President Trump's first 2 weeks in office, the weaponization of the Justice Department, and the unshakable union of Maga and Maha. Steve Bannon, thank you so much for joining me today on Update from Washington. If you told me in 2017 I'd be sitting here with you in 2025, I would have just laughed. There was zero chance, zero possibility I would ever think this would be the case. And here we are today. You're so close to Trump world, the MAGA movement. The more that I learn about you, the more that I'm impressed by who you are as an individual, but also how much effort the left took to frame you as this Grim Reaper character. I mean, they really invested a huge amount to plant that in the minds of millions of Americans that you're somehow this anti-American Grim Reaper. You are not. You are a real, like, the archetype that I see you as today is you're a fabulous dad. You're a businessman. You're Harvard educated. You were in the Navy. You're a Navy captain. Very handsome Navy captain. I saw a picture. And you really, really care about humans and humanity and the experience we have. So as you're sitting in the seat now, it's 2025. You're a hero to many millions of Americans who thought you were just this awful person in 2017. Do you feel like it's different? Is this a different Trump presidency 2 weeks in?
I think it's the country. I don't think, not even Trump. I think it's the country's going through an awakening. It was very providential. You know, I was there in 16, or really Trump, really from 14 on 15, we kind of came out of nowhere. But I could see the tectonic plate shift happening in Brexit and happening in all these different places where a populist nationalist uprising as a reaction to the 2008 financial collapse and the way the elites bailed themselves out on U.S. taxpayers, that we could actually have a populist nationalist uprising. But when we won, you know, we had no reserve capacity. We didn't really have a lot of people trained. And the established order struck back hard. I never took it personally of anything you call me. I know who I am. I'm actually come from a Democratic family. I come from an Irish Catholic, Kennedy supporting group of Union Democrats. And so I knew who I was. I'd served my country. So it didn't matter to me at all. I also understood that you keep working at this and the truth will eventually come out. I think what's happened is you've had a tectonic plate shift really driven, I think, by the pandemic, where we have a whole new element called, I think, the Make America Healthy Again, which has been right below the surface, has been brewing. And now you've got kind of the convergence or the fusion of these two movements that could change the direction of the nation. And I think what's interesting is people on both sides that have been so hesitant that, you know, we were all enemies actually understand we have much more in common than that. What separates, still things separate us, but much more in common. And you've seen this week, not just in your candidacy, because behind the scenes, you should know, I wanted Bobby actually to be Trump's vice president. Of course, I didn't know he'd pick a vice president like you, so I now understand why third party was great. But no, I wanted the fusion of it at that level at the time. I thought it would be fantastic. It didn't happen, but later you guys were smart enough to really think through and to put both movements together. So I'm just the same Steve Bannon I've always been, working on the same stuff I'm always working on, fighting for the little guy. And the country's just more awakened, and now we have so many more allies that are bringing energy and ideas, and quite frankly, even a level of sophistication on some of the topics, particularly health, that it's a new day in America, and it's just fantastic. And we've got work cut out for us this week because you see the established order of how they're trying to destroy Bobby Kennedy in these hearings, and how they're trying to destroy Tulsi Gabbard, and how they're trying to destroy really good people. So the established order's still there. They're fighting back hard as ever, but we just got to put our heads down and keep grinding.
I saw that Lindsey Graham might be coming around on Bobby's confirmation. The vote is coming up real soon, and do you think it's going to look in our favor? I mean, you've been a huge proponent of Maha. Um, Again, many people in Maha didn't know that we would find so many friends in Maga, and it's been almost a perfect puzzle piece, fitting two puzzle pieces fitting together.
Look, the Maha Maga convergence, there's nothing the established order hates more. Look at the vision of all the attacks last week, and I hope if your audience hasn't seen it, if you guys are play some clips, the vitriol and hatred coming at Bobby Kennedy. Remember, Bobby Kennedy comes from Democratic Party royalty. He took hits last week from the Republicans, but man, the Democrats were off the chain coming at this guy personally with just nastiness and vitriol, really hatred. And I'm so glad at the end he finally braced up Bernie Sanders, who I think is just a performance artist, finally called him out. Your folks have to understand, I had Tommy Tuberville on the show last week, and I asked Coach Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, because he's on Health and Human Services, and I said, if you have to take the defense industrial complex and the big tech industrial complex and the biopharmaceutical medical industrial complex, which is the most powerful for these hearings? What's the most powerful, and what's the ones Americans should worship most? And he says, Steve, stop. He says, the biopharmaceutical medical is 2 orders of magnitude the defense and big tech combined. And this is Tuberville, who basically stood the Pentagon up for a year on promotion of field officers. And I go, are you kidding me? He says, Steve, it's so much money. And this is why Bobby had to go to finance and had to go to health, and really finance votes on Kennedy, right? And so it's because it's so much money. And it's so much money ill spent. Look, one of the most powerful segments we've had on War Room in the last year, and we've had some insanely powerful, was quite frankly, you coming on the first time, you came on and talked about the Department of Agriculture and soil and carbon and the Green New Deal and putting everything. That was a revelation to the hardcore MAGA base to go, wow, I never thought about it like that. That's why this city, #1 objective this week is make sure there's no fusion of Maha and the MAGA movement. They are out to get Bobby Kennedy. I think if we get Cassidy, and we put enormous pressure on him, we've had a lot of people from Louisiana. If we get Dr. Cassidy and he gets voted out of committee, I think he'll win in the floor. Bobby's got to win. We don't, we got to, we must win this, because this shows the fusion of both movements, and that's where they're trying to break. But your audience should understand that vested interests in this country are bound and determined not to have these these nascent political movements come together and work as one.
Yeah. I mean, when unlikely bedfellows come together, that's when the establishment really it panics. They're like, what? We thought these people hated each other. They're so different culturally. How is it that they're coming together to take us on? And, I saw that very clear when you did that interview with Ross Tauthat from the New York Times.
Dothat, yeah.
Tothat, yeah. I mean, in 2017, would you ever get a fair interview from the New York Times?
No. In fact, they were all in attack mode. It was all Russia. Remember, I'm the one that was investigated the most of President Trump. So I spent 60 hours either at the Mueller Commission or in House Intel or Senate Intel, because they were so obsessed with this bogus, Russia situation, and they were trying to catch you in a perjury trap to make you roll on President Trump. I mean, it was one of the reasons I went to prison, is that, I'm unbreakable in this regard, and will never give up this movement, never give up President Trump. Is ridiculous. And the established order, and this is why I feel like for you guys got to be, and people in your movement have to understand, even in getting Bobby in, and what we can do in Bobby's term as HHS will just be the top of the first inning. They will put you in prison. They will break you. They will bankrupt you. They will smear you. They will play with it. Look, they control the most powerful nation in the history of the earth. They're not prepared just to toss us the keys. You saw last week. Look at Bobby Kennedy. Everything Bobby Kennedy and his family have done for this country. Tulsi Gabbard, who served her country in combat 3 times. Kash Patel's dedicated his life to this. They went out to personally destroy these people. There was a Pete Hegseth for all his personal foibles, what he's done as a combat veteran and what he's going to do to put the warrior ethos. They spent all this time trying to destroy him, his wife, his family. They are in the politics of personal destruction. Here's why. They can't have a discussion with Bobby Kennedy going through all the Maha policy changes. That is when they realize the common sense of the American people, and I think that's what unites us, the revolution of common sense. When you talk to our audience and Mary Holland, and this is, we've known Bobby in the Children's Health Defense now for 4 years, Naomi Wolf, people go, that makes sense. That's actually common sense. This is about money and power. And money and power will do anything it has to keep its money and to get more power, including destroying anybody or anything that stands in the way. And that's what we have to be on guard for.
You said words, politics of personal destruction. And I experienced that firsthand, seeing the press turn on me in ways that I could have never imagined. Friends that have turned, made these underhanded, odd threats that make no sense. And I'm still the same person, just like you said, you're like, I'm still the same Steve Bannon I've always been, the same Steve Bannon that, came out of Harvard. I saw you give your daughter this beautiful hug when you came out of prison. I mean, they really try to destroy any public perception of humanity so that the attacks can come, right? They want to bring as many attacks
But
as
they
they
went after you
can,
hard.
vicious
They went after
attacks.
you hard, and they went after, from their point of view, it was actually smart, right? Because what you and Bobby represented was actually on a broader scale and on a broader platform. Remember, nobody knew you at the time except you were a superstar from Silicon Valley or venture capitalist, a brilliant young woman. And, all of a sudden you started making sense. They realized that, gosh, this could take voters away from us in these key states, and they could hand Trump the presidency. I think, from my perspective, they came after you pretty hard. I was saying, I hope she's ready for the National Football League, because they know Kennedy is a original gangster in this regard. She's just new to the fight, and man, I hope somebody's told her, because they're going to come and they tried to destroy you. Let's be blunt. They tried to destroy you, and they came pretty hard. I think
They
impressed a
hired
lot.
people to destroy me that I had hired to join my foundation team previously. And, like, breaches of contract everywhere.
Oh, that was everything. So they came after you pretty hard. But I also
Yeah.
think that shows you you're a threat to the system. If they come after you hard, that's the biggest indicator that you're a threat. And that, for 80% of the people empowers them. For 20% of the people, it breaks them. There are people that are broken in this. But once you go through that trial by fire, there's nothing they can do. You're impervious to and you realize how weak they are and how mean. I mean, think of all the dirty tricks they try to pull, which you can never tell people, I know, but all the things that happened that you know about in your life, and other things that they try to get this, and they blackmail and saying terrible things and printing bald-faced lies. They will stop at nothing, and they stop at nothing because they have money and power, and they're going to keep that. And they don't care who they destroy in the process. They targeted you, and you came through the trial by fire.
Yeah, and here we are today. I mean, I'm thrilled by Trump's first 2 weeks in office this time around. I think he's made some really smart decisions. Thematically the same, but the execution has been different, and I think very effective. The 25% tariffs, the mainstream media is trying to tell everyone to be terrified. It's going to destroy our economy. I mean, I just see opportunities for new entrepreneurs and businesses to thrive. And I tried to explain it to someone today who's a hairstylist. She did my hair. And she's like, these tariffs are everyone's telling me they're bad, but I don't understand how they're bad. I'm like, I know. Imagine if we were flying in hairstylists who didn't have to pay, US taxes. They were doing my hair and then just flying home for the day. I mean, that's what it's like. It's for all these other industries, our farming industry. They're selling into the United States as if they're US nationals. They're taking the income out. It's not going into our economy. It's going into Mexico's economy. I mean, these are very smart, common sense moves by our president. They're being framed inaccurately, but I think more Americans are understanding if you just break it down and make those examples personal for them, they all get it. They all understand this is good for America.
I think he looks at this in a very sophisticated way. This is about changing. This is not about putting a 25% tariff on a Mexican avocado. That's not what this is about. Or some under the hood part coming from Canada that goes into an engine in Detroit. It's fundamentally different. What he's thinking, his overall plan, I think, is geoeconomic and geostrategic. He looks at it, he says, hey, the little guy in this country has built up this civic society that makes the United States the most robust market in the world, the most robust capital market and consumer market. And just like in the way Trump thinks, he says, hey, just like at a football game, you get a corporate box, or the concert, you get a front row ticket, there's got to be premium pricing. If you want to get access to what the hairdresser does in her community and keeping this thing stable, there's a premium. And I'm going to charge you a premium to get through the golden door. You got to pay a premium, and that premium is going to go and accrete to the value of people in the United States. And if you want to get away from it, he says, bring your manufacturing jobs here. One of the things we have a lack of in this country is manufacturing jobs. And once you get high value added manufacturing back like we used to have, all of a sudden you're going to see all those other industries, service industries, the bodegas, the hairstylists, the drivers, all of it are going to be recreated like we had back in the 50s and 60s. And that's President Trump's plan. And you've already seen by the nations of the world caving already. They get the joke. And what he said in this tweet the other day, put up on True Social, we're not going to have the American taxpayer subsidizing like the Germans going to Mexico and putting in 25 automotive companies down there, automotive manufacturing, and just ship it across the border. The days of playing games are over. He's defending the American worker and the American people, and there's going to be a little trauma. There's going to be some, we're going to hit some speed bumps. We're not going to win everything. There are going to be a couple of cloudy days, but directionally, we're making progress.
Are you feeling good about the people around Trump today? How is this different from 2017?
It's different in that if you think about when he first in 2017, with 2016, we were 10 points or 12 points down when I took the campaign over in August 13th or 14th. I mean, there it was a full on, and we had Billy Bush still to come. It was a full on, just complete, every second of every day just to win. Right, particularly we pierced the blue. That was our bet. The big bet in 16 that I made that the president supported was we could pierce the blue veil. That there was enough working class people in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that could give us the presidency. And everybody was mocking me at the time that this is ridiculous. That we ended up doing it, and that's what won it. But we had no time to prepare to do a transition. We didn't know Bobby Kennedy. We didn't know you. We didn't know Tulsi Gabbard. We had. Although I brought Tulsi Gabbard up in the first 2 weeks to talk to the president at that time, saying she should be the UN ambassador, not Nikki Haley. But we had no bench. Here it was very different. When Trump left, the established order had so thrown him out that the political movement we did on the precinct strategy, just start small and start getting some wins, always have his back. As the Murdochs cut him off at Fox for 18 months, he wasn't on live TV in Fox because they wanted DeSantis or Nikki Haley or some neoliberal neocon. But that dovetail was these public intellectuals. Now, it's kind of called Project 2025, but it was Brooke Rollins and Stephen Miller at America First Policies. It was Russ Vought at CRA, as people we had on the show. And what they started to do is think through verticals of policy and start to build teams. Because as you know, we get 4,000 people in the government. 3,000 can go in day one. 1,000 have to be Senate confirmed, which is you're in the middle of the fight of the confirmations, the first wave. If we do that and think about days of thunder, every day there's 6 or 7 or 8, 10 things. These haven't been thought of since November 5th. This has been years in planning. People working on it. So President Trump and what he said, the Atlantic magazine broke the story. Susie sat down with all the policies being working and says, hey, we got a 30-day schedule. We'll roll them out every couple of days, have a press conference. He goes, no. I want like 12 a day. And we've had, I think, 200 executive orders or actions in every different vertical every day, and it's only going to get more intense. Look, on Friday, he took apart the first part of the FBI in the Justice Department as going after the deep state. Elon, with his help, took down USAID over the weekend, And that's not even the number 2 or 3 story going on. They're talking about tariffs and and other things geostrategically. Ukraine, Bibi coming over to try to end these wars. Trump's hitting this thing like nobody's business. I would just tell you, audience, it's only just starting. You're going to see major, major things every day. And this guy, he's in his moment. He's worked for years on this. They put him, this coast of putting him in prison for 300 years. They would die. They tried to assassinate him. So he's like Charlemagne right now, right? This is the best Trump. This is Trump. This is peak Trump you're getting right now.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch the speed at which things are happening. It's only been 2 weeks. We don't even have most of our cabinet positions confirmed yet. Um, on the topic of Doge, I don't think people are hearing exactly what Doge is. It's an efficiency agency, but what really is it? I've heard from an incoming agency head that what Doge is, it's a data mining research arm that can answer any budgetary question by department. And I've seen it, executed now a few times where an individual will ask, tell me um, everything about where department dollars are going overseas. And they can deliver that and tell you every individual who is hired to execute specific programs. Now, before Doge, in order for you to answer some of these questions, you would have to either hire a consulting team or build a team internally to do that work. It was very slow. You oftentimes wouldn't get clean answers. So acting on efficiency goals with it like interagency was almost impossible. So having this like external almost consulting team that has some of the best data miners and organizers we have in this country, because each department has its own team. I've been told about 5 or 6 people dedicated. And they're really smart, very thoughtful, tech savvy. So they're actively mining information and turning it into solutions in just a matter. I mean, USAID, you said he did over the weekend. I mean, they're moving so rapidly. It's fascinating. And people don't understand how they're doing it. I feel like if they understood how they were accomplishing these things, they would have greater respect for it as as really something we need in this country.
Part of that, you actually have highlighted one of the issues. I think the data mine. Let me get this a second. I think, I gave this speech in 2017 when I was in the White House that our 3 areas were a rethink of America first, national security, get out of these forever wars, to really start to think through economic nationalism, bringing jobs back and using tariffs. We had going back to Hamilton's originally the America plan, and the third was the deconstruction of the administrative state. What has happened in our country is that to take our democracy from us, we've had this massive bureaucracy, the administrative state, the alphabet agencies, and also the cabinet positions. They've gotten into everything of where you could spend, $6.5 trillion a year. That has a rogue element to it. That rogue element is the deep state. And the deep state is kind of like the Praetorian Guard in Imperial Rome. It's a set of part of the Pentagon, the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence apparatuses, the Justice Department. And this is why, by the way, they hate Tulsi Gabbard, they hate Kash Patel, they hated Matt Gaetz. They don't want any Trump people to get their hands on the levers of power. That combination of the administrative state is one of the reasons we have these massive budget deficits, right? That we can't afford $2 trillion. You already understand. We spend $6.5 trillion. We only take in about $4.5 trillion. And so that $2 trillion gap has to be financed every year. We have 36 trillion, and right now a third of it's got to be refinanced every year. This is one of the reasons inflation won't go away. This is one of the reasons your credit card is exploding at 25 to 29% APR, that you can't meet your monthly numbers. You have to bridge it with a credit card heading towards bankruptcy. To get your hands around that, you've got to go after the administrative state. What Elon is really from O&B, which is the management operation of the federal government. With the digital services, he's a consultant and advisor. In other words, they use the digital platform to get in. And in Elon's, his better angels are his brilliant analytical and engineering brain. Last week, let me use 2 specific examples. This memo that went out from O&B was to try to ascertain in the system where the cash is, since O&B manages it, but it's still fairly rudimentary how they manage it. They were trying to find out where basically $5 trillion of cash is, and you had a meltdown by everybody. But what it did expose, it's everywhere. It's in Head Start programs, it's Meal on Wheels. In every district, the Republican congressman phones were getting blown up. In addition, then over the weekend, it was ascertained that the digital team is actually in Treasury, which writes the checks. So the Treasury actually, and this is Elon's engineering brain putting together the plumbing of how things work, even in a rudimentary nature in the US government. It's highly inefficient. But he's now understands where the checks are written, right? And who manages kind of where it goes, which is OMB. And I think you're going to see big changes. That one of the issues I think gets to be actually to the data mining. Do you get into people's personal data? As you know, the Maha movement, one of the best things you guys have done, I think, to bring up on a global basis is how our data is everywhere, how our medical data is everywhere,
Yeah.
and how that's used to enslave us, right? So I think that gets to be an issue. But what he's done already is to identify, particularly for the Maha movement, you should know in MAGA, one of the things we're against these massive intelligence apparatuses. That's why they hate Tulsi, and we want her in. The USAID, which you think, hey, this is a great thing, this American government giving money to NGOs and giving money to third world countries, is anything but. It's a cutout for the CIA. It's the reason the CIA can keep such tremendous power internationally and tremendous power in our own government. And Elon, I think, was very smart. President Trump identified him to do it. I would continue to look at Elon and these guys. What he's promised President Trump on that $2 trillion annual deficit, he will cut it down to $1 trillion. If he can do that, that is tremendous service to the country. Now, what you're going to find out is a firestorm. There's a firestorm last week just identifying where the cash is in the system.
Yeah.
And another firestorm about him actually having some input in the checkbook. You wait till it comes to cut this. And I keep saying, you can't cut, you're not going to get to Medicaid and Medicare. Medicare and Social Security. That's off the table. But even in talking about discretionary spending, we have to focus on the Defense Department. Look, I spent 8 years as a naval officer, Fort C. My daughter's, West Point grad, served in Iraq with the 101st. You have to go after defense until you can show that we can get our hands around a $900 billion. And I'll tell you, audience, it's actually $1 trillion because they do some phony accounting. $1 trillion defense budget. We're not going to have any cuts. Nobody's going to give up Meals on Wheels or Head Start or the Kiwanis Club's NGO until we can show we can get control of defense. And that is the massive fights we're going to have here: is taking Medicaid with Bobby in the biopharmaceutical and the medical industry, of how they've basically taken Medicare and Medicaid at trillions of dollars and are just sucking it out of the American people without providing great health, without making America healthy again in the defense complex. Those are fights, ladies and gentlemen, that are going to come up starting in a couple of weeks. They're going to be monumental, and they're going to be ongoing, and you're going to see how nasty this it gets when we go to choke off the mother's milk of the established order, which is taxpayer money.
That sounds fantastic. And when I say data mining, we're actually turning it around. So Doge is saying, you're not going to data mine the American public anymore. The American public is going to data mine this deep state, right? That's what's going on. We're turning it around. We're putting the spotlight on the government. The government's been, looking at us as like ants through a microscope, and that's wrong. We've got to turn it around, and that's what Doge is. So I appreciate you, Steve. Thanks for coming on today. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have woken up from my stupor and programming to see what's actually going on in this country.
Well, Nicole, I got to tell you, you've made a couple of appearances on War Room, and the response has been, we got to get you on more, because the MAGA movement is just awakening to what Maha stands for. It's going to be so powerful. If we keep these two movements pointed downrange and working together, this will be the most significant political realignment in this country since 1932, and we have that ability to govern. Now we have to show we can govern. One of the ways we got to show we can govern is everybody's got to help support. We got to get Bobby confirmed. We can't govern until we get our people in. So Tulsi, Bobby, Cash, all of them have to get confirmed, and that's the fight we've got for the next couple of days.
Yep. All right. Well, we're in it, and we're excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.